Another deadly shooting in the United States. This time, gunfire erupts at a 4th of July Independence Day parade, leaving 5 people dead and at least 16 injured. Officials say the shooting happened on the parade route near Highland Park, a wealthy suburb in the city of Chicago. The area has been cordoned off by law enforcement officers and are responding to the incident. The gun violence is almost a daily occurrence in the United States. From Washington, Colin Campbell now joins us for more details on the shooting.
The separation of the colonist areas of the United States from British imperialism, celebrating 1776 Declaration of Independence. But of course, in this suburb outside of Chicago, some gunfire rang out. Police are trying to figure out exactly what caused it, if it was like 2 people who were arguing and gunfire broke out, or if this was a random incident. Well, we do know that several people have already been killed and several more injured. And this is just another tragic day when it comes to gun violence in America, when it comes to mass shootings in America, particularly on a day that many are supposed to be celebrating their independence.
Colin, we've been discussing this so often, unfortunately. As you mentioned yourself, it has been reoccurring in the United States very often. But do you see
Yes.
any light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to some kind of legislation that would stop this? And we're also receiving some live images from Highland Park right now, where the mayor has said that the situation remains active and people have been urged to remain indoors. We can see
Yeah.
police cars right now in the area.
Hmm. Yeah, and just to give you a quick update, I know I said about 5 killed before. I think that number has now increased to 8 people killed and almost 30 people injured. So you can see this was a big incident that happened. This wasn't just some small shooting where just a couple people ended up being killed. And it's even ironic that I would say a small shooting where a couple people were killed. In any situation, one person is too many. One person to be shot and killed is too many. But of course, in America, we consider mass shootings where anyone, the number 4 or more are shot and killed. That usually constitutes a mass shooting. So this is definitely a mass shooting in America today. 8 people killed, I think about 29 injured to the latest count. When it comes to gun legislation, we did see some gun legislation passed not too long ago, and this was the most that had passed since the Trump administration when it came to bump stocks, and then several years before that, probably nothing major since the assault weapons ban during, I believe, the Clinton administration. With the latest legislation that was passed into law, we saw red flag laws being implemented. Those who might have been arrested for violence or abuse, they would definitely have to go through a number of checks and balances or even be disallowed from even ever owning a gun. They raised the legal age for trying to buy an assault rifle. They raised that age. There was money allocated for mental health awareness and mental health help for those who need it. So this was probably the most serious and comprehensive gun reform, if one could call it that we've had in several years. Many have said that it has fallen short, however, of really doing anything profound when it comes to gun access and limiting the amount of guns people can have or the amount of ammunition that people could have. So would this legislation have stopped something like this? I think we have the answer right here, that this incident still occurred despite legislation being passed. So again, this may have fallen short of doing anything serious and profound in the way that gun violence has just proliferated in the United States, contributing to numerous mass shootings throughout the year, like we've had today with nearly 10 people dead. Of course, that the death toll continues to rise. It's not a final count, but that's just the latest number of people who have been killed.
Exactly, and the shooter is still at large, and the police don't even know
Yeah.
if he has hostages or not. There are still so many question marks out there, Colin. But you know,
Yeah.
Highland Park, the way we understand, is considered a very good neighborhood. And isn't that surprising to see such an incident in a neighborhood like that? And do you think that will change the equations in any way?
It isn't that surprising because we're seeing it more and more. The common thought is it can't happen here. It's a small town. This is not who we are. We hear these phrases over and over again. How many times will we hear these phrases on repetition with the thought that, okay, these are always one offs? Well, if you have a collection of one offs, then are they really one offs? Are they really isolated incidents when you can say this phrase that this is, we never thought this would happen here, or this is a nice, peaceful place, or this isn't who we are, or some other phrase indicating that it was unlikely for this incident to happen here? I think that Americans are slowly realizing that this can happen anywhere. It doesn't matter if it's in the inner city, that's often put in the media as the most dangerous place to live because they have shootings there. Well, they have shootings in suburbs too. We just had Uvalde. We've had, we know the big one, Sandy Hook in Connecticut. That's a suburb. I mean, there's so many to name. That when you're looking at the area where the shooting took place, a lot of people would just say, it's so peaceful here. We've never had an incident like this happen before. Well, it finally happened, and that's where it happened, in a suburb. So I don't know if it will really change the pace for anyone right now because it was very slow. The process of trying to get any gun legislation before was very glacial. We finally got some. So the next time that there will be more gun reform may not be for quite a bit of time because we just passed something after many more shootings, right? So it's unlikely that anything will really change after this. A lot of people didn't think anything would change after Uvalde, and something did, even though it was small. So
Uh,
again, this could be just the latest time before the next time.
Yes, but Colin, as an American living in the U.S., and of course the U.S. is the only country where we see these problems. I mean, the problems you are dealing with is very strange to the rest of the world. What do you think, as a correspondent, as someone who's been reporting these issues and who goes deep into the root causes, what do you think would be the way out of this immense problem?
Really, nothing could be done unless it is done legislatively. If I was to just throw out, like, if there were no uh, restrictions on what could be done, I mean, we would have to, in my opinion, and this would just be my opinion, as just an American citizen, rather, and looking at just the ways that other countries have dealt with things. But to remove guns is to really, have maybe gun amnesty, to incentivize people to have less guns. I also think to put more money into finding illegal weaponry on the streets. I think that there should be a more bold weapon registry about the number of people who are killed in mass shootings or otherwise. I think that the CDC, or there could be another agency, to look at this as a type of health crisis, although it's not kind of like a sickness like COVID. Some could characterize this proliferation of gun violence as a pathology that Americans are suffering and then leading to their deaths. So this could very much be connected to a health issue. So creating a registry with the CDC to track these a little bit more closely. But I think that, for example, in Australia, where they had a program where a lot of people just gave up their guns, we see the incidence of mass shootings there severely decreased. We look at programs like Canada, where it's more restrictive to even obtain a gun, more restrictive than here. If we want to look at what some of our neighbors are doing, Canada, for example, they don't have the most restrictive gun laws in the world, but they do have laws that are more restrictive than the United States. That would be even a step there. Or we could go, like I said, to something as radical as what's happened in Australia, where a lot of people gave up their guns, and just the almost having a certain types of weaponry was criminalized. That would never fly here, though. We have to remember that owning a gun, the right to bear arms, is part of our Second Amendment. So it's written into the Constitution, and the interpretation of that is what you see the manifestation of. When that law was written, these were the founders of America that used muskets, little balls that they had to pack into a gun with gunpowder and then shoot for each musket ball that was fired. Today it's a lot different, but the way the law is interpreted is based on kind of an antiquated understanding of what the right to bear arms most likely meant when it was written hundreds of years ago. And unfortunately, when it comes to the way that the Supreme Court is set up right now, it's more right leaning. So the interpretations are a lot more open, they're a lot more antiquated. And the way that the Supreme Court chronology is right now, any law pertaining to the Second Amendment and the way it's interpreted now will last for generations unless something more radical happens, like additions to the Supreme Court, if we added more to the Supreme Court. So what I guess I say all that to say is nothing can really happen unless it's done in a deliberative and profound nature. And right now, I don't see that as the political will in the United States.
Thank you very much. Our correspondent, Colin Campbell, joining us live from Washington. And these are live images that we're receiving from the state of Illinois, Highland Park in Chicago. It has been another tragic day in the United States, another mass shooting with deadly gunfire on a 4th of July parade.